はい、それでは英検1級2分間スピーチ過去問10本暗唱します。本日は40番台です。はい、一つ目、Should the death penalty be banned in Japan? Whether death penalty should be banned in Japan or not is a controversial debate. The enemy says clearly, yes. I know there are some strong support in Japan for death penalty, mainly because of justice for victims and bad feelings of their family. But real justice can be achieved by taking human life. Today I'm going to talk about two things. Uh, core principle, core moral principle, and viewpoints of some Western nations. Firstly, there is more core moral principle. Killing others is fundamentally wrong. If the state executes individual, it normalizes violence. It's a clear violation of human rights. These days, I hear many teachers are asked by the student, why mustn't we kill others? If this penalty is generally accepted, how can these teachers answer this question? Secondly, let's think about the viewpoint of Southwestern nations like Germany and France. They have long opposed this penalty, focusing on human dignity and human rights. According to their policy, as long as judgment of justice system includes subjectivity, they can be fallible, and sometimes it leads to a false accusation. So, ultimate judgment capital punishment should be abolished. In conclusion, the death penalty in Japan should be banned, focusing on human dignity and human rights. 次は48。The threat to society posed by the internet being taken seriously enough. Whether threats posed by the internet are taken seriously enough or not is a controversial debate in my sense. Clearly, no. We regularly use the internet as taking it for granted. But on my second thought, there are a lot of threats posed by the internet. Today, I'm going to talk about two threats. Hacking ethics by big organization and foreign government, and decoding by quantum computing. Firstly, let's think about hacking ethics by big organization and foreign government. These are not only about stealing money, but also about espionage, attacking on infrastructure, and manipulating public opinion. For example, about 1 year ago, there were a scale of hacking attacks on bank accounts of stock exchange markets. At that time, a lot of stocks were sold and bought at the mercy of criminals, and one assumption is that these criminals were Chinese syndicate led by Chinese government. Also, Askru and Asahi Brewer corporations were hit by large-scale hacking attacks in a similar way. Now we are caught in a crossfire of hacking attacks anytime, anywhere. Secondly, quantum computers have a great potential for breaking current encryption. Now, almost everything online, from bank transaction to national security secret, largely depend on complicated code. However, quantum computers, once powerful enough, could decode them in seconds, and as a result, all the data and communication would be completely vulnerable. But the Japanese government has not dealt with it yet. In conclusion, threats posed by the internet are not taken seriously enough in Japan. はい、次です。失礼。Do the values of today's company employees differ from those of past generation? これが課題です。Whether the values of today's company employees differ from those of the past generation or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is clearly yes. Today, I'm going to talk about the two important factors: transition from job security to work balance, and technology integration. Firstly, in the past, employees want job security or a clear step up for their promotion. So they worked to support their family or their personal promotion, not for their personal satisfaction. So they sometimes worked overtime at the cost of their personal time. However, on the other hand, now they want more work balance, more time with their family, and a more motivating job along with their personal values. So They change jobs so often, and labor turnover has been seen more often than before. Secondly, technology has affected the values of today's employees. Young generation growing with digital transformation have a lot of advantages in this respect. For example, they are willing to accept remote work, flexible time, and act as facilitators between AI and customers. Also, they like to hold team meeting by using PowerPoint, mind maps, two-way communications like Zoom, and of course generative AI. Their working style is quite different from that of the past. In conclusion, values of today's employees are quite different from those of the past. 次です。Do the advantages of ecotourism outweigh the disadvantages ですね。Whether the advantage of ecotourism outweigh the disadvantages or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is clearly no. The situation is the opposite. Today, I'm going to talk about the three key factors: animal welfare, eco-unfriendly behavior, and risks of taking human life. Firstly, let's think about animal welfare. In my opinion, using wildlife and wild animals for human entertainment is fundamentally wrong. If animal and human contact is closer, the animals will get used to eating human food, living human residence, and will never go back to their wildlife. This is not fair to them. These days, we have encountered a lot of wild animals like bears, boars, monkeys, and it's obvious that they need a place to live in different from human residence. So, ecotourism is a stupid behavior to create the same situation. Secondly, the name of eco-friendly tourism masks eco-unfriendly behavior. In fact, ecotourism develop a lot of commercial districts by developing infrastructure, by reclaiming lands and cutting a lot of trees. Also, they attract a lot of tourists who may waste a lot of garbage. Finally, we must acknowledge risks of taking human life. Ecotourism exposes a lot of visitors to the accidents and encounter with a lot of animals, wild animals. Also, some companies carry out a tight schedule, even horrible weather. We should avoid these risks. In conclusion, the negative sides of ecotourism outweigh the positive sides. 次。Agree or disagree? Multinational corporations have become too powerful. Today's topic is multinational corporations have become too powerful or not. My answer is clearly no. I disagree with this statement. There are too many challenges. Today I'm going to talk about two big challenges, climate change and international conflict. Firstly, it's tough for multinational corporations to cope with climate change. This topic has been discussed at the COP meeting every year, but consensus cannot be easily formed. For one thing, each nation strongly insists on their national interest. Also, while developed nations assure their contribution to economic growth, developing nations stress disparity caused by the climate change. Also, three top contributors to carbon emission, the US, China, India, don't want to join the discussion. It's obvious they still focus on economic growth. Secondly, multinational corporations are often caught in the crossfire of international conflict. After the World War II, United Nations was established as a symbol of multinational cooperation to keep well-being of human beings and world peace. However, the Cold War started at the same time, and since then, there have been lots of international conflict here and there on Earth. For example, Korean War, Vietnam War, Middle East wars, and India-Pakistan wars. And even now, Russia and the Ukraine war still persists, and the US and Israel attack Iran, and the US also attacked Venezuela. Japan is surrounded by three big countries which possess nuclear weapons. There are many protest movement by Gen Zs. How can we say these activities are multinational corporations? In conclusion, multinational corporations are not powerful at all. On the contrary, the world is being divided. Are the police in Japan equipped to deal with the challenges of modern society? Whether Japanese police can cope with a lot of new challenges in modern society or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is regrettably no. Today I'm going to talk about three big challenges: cyber crimes, organized crimes, and crimes related to demographic shift. Firstly, let's think about cyber crimes. For one thing, hacking attacks and scam frauds are happening too often. Also, these crimes are often committed by big organizations and foreign government. For example, about 1 year ago, there were a large scale of hacking attacks on bank accounts of stock exchange market. At that time, a lot of stocks were bought and sold at the disposal of criminals. One assumption is that these criminals were Chinese syndicates led by the Chinese government. Secondly, organized crimes are changing. While all the types of gangs, Yakuza are weaker, new types of gangs, Tokyo or anonymous mobile crime groups use the internet for their serious frauds and illegal trades. For one thing, they're hard to catch because they change location too often, they are cross-border, they are anonymous, their network is too complicated to identify. Finally, uh, crimes related to demographic shift due to aging and growing immigrants have become more and more serious. For one thing, elder citizens are so courageous that they can be targeted for fraud, and growing immigrants bring about a lot of crimes like sexual crimes and skirmish. Language is always a barrier for investigation. In conclusion, there are too many challenges for Japanese police to cope with. Will infectious diseases become a greater threat to humanity in the future? ですね。Whether infectious diseases will become a greater threat to humanity in the future or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is clearly yes. Today I am going to talk about three important factors: resurgence of familiar infectious diseases, climate change, and lack of infrastructure in developing nations. Firstly, these days we have often seen resurgence of familiar infectious diseases like measles and whooping cough. They were once controlled by vaccines and didn't appear so often. So this resurgence means that even familiar pathogens will become a greater threat without serious attention. Secondly, climate change indirectly spreads infectious diseases. For example, sudden torrential rain causes flooding, swamping infrastructure, and mixing clean water with sewage. And as a result, it leads to water contamination and waterborne diseases like Ebola and cholera. Also, the rising temperature has spread infectious diseases so fast that the vaccination cannot catch up with it. Finally, lack of infrastructure in developing nations aggravate horrible situation. Uh, these regions are usually lack enough doctors, other medical staffs, and essential devices to detect and prevent outbreaks. Also, they don't have enough hygiene and sanitation system. In conclusion, infectious diseases will become a greater threat to humanity in the future. よいしょ。agree or disagree, technology is undermining the role of teachers in the classroom. Whether technology is undermining the role of teachers in the classroom or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is clearly no. With AI evolution, it is worrying that teachers' role will be replaced by AI, but I don't think so. AI evolution can go with teachers' evolution, and most importantly, teachers' evolution is that they should be facilitators or intermediaries between student and AI. To clarify my session today, I'm going to talk about the Japanese English education. Firstly, Japanese English teachers' teaching skill is very low. Most of them teach English in Japanese. Also, their knowledge about English is also very poor. On the other hand, I can speak English very well. I can teach English in English, and his knowledge about English is almost perfect. In addition, Japanese teachers' teaching methods are outdated. They focus on grammar translation and memorization. On the other hand, AI can customize and personalize student feedback and new target. They can make personalized tests very easily, and if students answer, they can score and grade and give them clear explanation for each question. Also, if student ask, AI can answer instantly and almost perfectly. All these things are what human teachers cannot do. But there's something only human teachers can do. For example, they can feel subtle nuance like lack of motivation of the student. Also, during interconnection in the classroom, human teachers are necessary as facilitators. In conclusion, technology can undermine teachers' roles in the classroom. AI evolution can go with teachers' evolution. Thank you. はい。41番。Whether it is possible for developed nation to keep today's living standard or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is regrettably no. There are a lot of new challenges. Today I'm going to talk about the two big challenges. Climate change and demographic shift. Firstly, climate change has a lot of negative impacts on developed nations, including Japan. For example, rising temperature has a great negative impact. Every summer, it is reported many Japanese people suffer from heat strokes. Also, some outdoor sports like high school baseball should change schedule. Also, extreme weather has negative impact as well. Uh, for example, these days we have encountered sudden torrential rain and snow. As a result, many forms of transportation cannot work well, and most of us cannot go to school or jobs so often. Secondly, demographic shift is another big challenge. Now, almost all developed nations are facing shrinking and aging population. This means the younger population should support older generation. However, they don't want to work for tough jobs, so developed nations accept a lot of immigrants from developing nations, and it might cause friction because of cultural difference. In conclusion, it's tough for developed nations to keep today's living standard by some global issues like climate change and demographic shift. Thank you. はい、最後ですね。would the global economy benefit from having a single world currency ですね。Whether the global economy would benefit from having a single world currency or not is a controversial debate, and my answer is clearly no. Adoption of single world currency would be very dangerous. We should avoid it. Today, I'm going to talk about the two possible risks. Disparity between rich and poor countries and exploitation by rent seekers or small number of rich and wealthy people. Firstly, if single world currency circulates all over the world from developed nations to developing nations, there will be large disparity between rich and poor countries. Especially in poor countries, inflation will be promoted. We shouldn't forget the failure of adoption of euro in EU nations. Even in small regions, the UK, Denmark, and Sweden gave up the adoption from the beginning. And even now, many South and East Euro nations strongly complain about the disparity. Secondly, if any world organization were in charge of single world currency, it would likely to be occupied by rent seekers and it would lead to second IMF and World Bank. And only rent seekers would be benefit from them. Even if this currency were decentralized like Bitcoin, they would be used for money laundering and tax evasion for rent seekers. In conclusion, the about adoption of single world currency would be very dangerous. We should avoid it. Thank you very much. ということで、今日は40番台をやりました。一切ですね、原稿は見ていません。今、本当に暗唱で言っております。毎日、お経スピーチをやりますと、これぐらいは一応なると。目標は1分間165です。では、ごきげんよう、さようなら。